I'd like to credit, this is an old African American story, but I actually learned it from David Mooney, Bill Mooney and David Holt, and their wonderful book, Ready to Tell Tales, Volume 1. So I wanted to credit them with this version of the story. Long ago, back when the world was new, many of the things that we know today, they were very different. Back then, the animals can talk and walk and sing and dance just like us people do. And back then, the animals, they looked very different. In fact, alligator, he had smooth golden skin, and he had the easiest life of all of God's creatures. All day long, alligators would just lay around in the swamp fishing and eating. When they got too tired of that, they just sun themselves on a big hot rock. And if that got too hot and bothered, they just slide back in the water to cool off. Like I said, they had the easiest life of all of God's creatures. Now, one day all these alligators, they were lying around, lazing around in the sun, and who should come hopping along? But Rabbit. Now, when Rabbit saw those alligators, his eyes wide open, because just a little few months ago they had bitten off Rabbit's tail, and this was the day he was coming to get them back. So Rabbit, he threw on a pair of nice sunglasses, and he pulled out his harp, and he started singing this little song. Oh trouble, oh trouble, there's trouble in the air. Oh trouble, there's trouble everywhere. Now trouble is a teacher, it's just like a friend. It won't be long before you've seen it again. I said trouble, oh trouble, there's trouble in the air. I said trouble, there's trouble everywhere. Now, you don't know living if you don't know strife. If you don't know trouble, man, you don't know life. Trouble, oh trouble, there's trouble in the air. Oh trouble, oh trouble, there's trouble everywhere. Now, when the king of the alligators heard Rabbit singing that pretty little song, he called out to him in his big deep bass voice and said, "Hello there, Rabbit. What's all this you're singing about? Of this here trouble?" "What? You mean to tell me you never heard of trouble?" "Nah, never heard of it. What's it all about?" "I know trouble. I know all about trouble. I can see trouble as big as the sky and as small as a fly. Trouble as wide as a river or as narrow as a tiny little sliver. And once you've seen trouble, you ain't never going to be the same." King of the alligators, he thought that was fine. "That sounds good, Rabbit. Where can I see me some of this trouble?" "You want to see trouble?" "Yes, sir. I want to see me some trouble." "I can show you trouble. I can show you big trouble. Trouble so big you're going to dance and jig. Trouble so wide you'll be all googly-eyed." "All right, Rabbit. When can I see me this here trouble?" "Well, let me think. I got it. Gather all your family together and meet me at the edge of that old hayfield in the morning." "All right, Rabbit. We'll be there, looking for trouble." "All right. I'll see you then." And Rabbit, he went hopping on his way, singing to that pretty little song. Trouble, 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 trouble. Now, in the morning, before the sun had time to reach the top of the old banyan tree, King of the Alligators, he got out of his swamp and he jumped up an old cypress stump and he called out in his deep voice. He said, "Alligators, gather around. We're gonna see trouble. Won't you come on down?" And you know, the mom and the papa alligators, that's gonna be you. They sort of answered and but a little bit higher. They said, "Alligators, gather around. We're gonna see trouble, won't you come on down?" Oh, I don't think I could hear you. Let's try that again. Alligators, gather around. We're gonna see trouble, won't you come on down? And those little itty bitty gators, they answered them, and they were really little and tiny and high voices. They said, "Alligators, gather around. We're gonna see trouble, won't you come on down?" And those alligators, they lined up. There were big ones and small ones. There were long ones and fat ones. It was the greatest parade of alligators any of the creatures in the swamp had ever seen. And they all lined up and they marched right off to that hayfield looking for trouble. And who do you think was there waiting for them? That's right, Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. Howdy, folks. How you doing this morning? We're doing fine, Rabbit. Did you bring us some trouble? Yes, sir, Bob. I brought you trouble. I brought you big trouble. Now, this is what I tell you to do. You go out in the middle of that hayfield and you wait, and I'll send trouble out to meet you. That's just what that alligators did. They all went out and they stood in the middle of that hayfield where the grass was high and the grass was dry. Meanwhile, Rabbit, he hopped over to the corner of the hayfield. He took out a kitchen match and he lit that grass on fire, and then he hopped over to the other corner and lit that grass on fire and around and all around until there was fire burning all around that hayfield. Well, those alligators, they sort of stood in the hayfield, and someone noticed something and said, "Hey, look what's that?" "And that must be the trouble Rabbit's bringing us." Well, that fire got closer and the fire got hotter. And they started saying, "Trouble sure is fine. This feels like the sun on a back of mine." But that fire got closer and that fire got hot, and they said, "The trouble sure is hot. It just feels like the sun on a big hot rock." Oh, that fire got closer and hotter still, and they said, "The trouble is biting me. It feels just like a swarm of bees." Well, those alligators had about enough trouble as they could stand. The king of the alligators said, "This is it. Can't stand no more. Let's leave this trouble behind." So they jigged to the left and they jigged to the right. They jigged forward and back, but they weren't going anywhere because there was fire burning all around. They had no choice. King of the alligators said, "Follow me." And he lowered his head and boom, he ran through that wall of flames. And one by one, those alligators followed him, and they ran and they ran and they ran until they reached their swamp. And then with a crack and a sizzle, they fell back into the water where it was nice and cool and soothing, and that feels mighty fine. But you know, once they were feeling better, they looked around and gone was their beautiful golden skin. Now it was all gray-green and cracked with ridges, and it was still smoking. And King of the Alligators, he had those deep down gut bucket blues, and he started singing that song. Trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. When who do you think should come hopping along but Rabbit? Howdy, folks. How'd you like trouble? I told you it was a good teacher. Rabbit, we don't want to learn nothing about no more trouble. "Oh," said Rabbit, "it's too late for that, you see. Once you trouble, never trouble until trouble troubles you." And ever since that day, those alligators, they stay close to the swamp where they can soothe their cracked, dry skin and stay away from trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble in the air. Trouble, trouble, trouble everywhere. Trouble, trouble, trouble.